Hello gents, hello, welcome to 737 Aviation channel and welcome to our new project, which is Boeing 737 simulator type rating. I have done a similar project on my Polish website and I have received many requests to do the same in English, so we decided actually to give it a try, and we'll see if you like that, and if I have positive feedback we will continue the series. Maybe a couple of words about myself. For those who don't know me, I'm Jersey. I'm a real-life pilot. Accumulated above, actually almost 5,000 hours at the moment, so as at the end of 2021. Which about 4,000 hours included on different versions of 737s. I'm flying since 2012, so that's gonna be 10 years shortly, and that's mostly about me. I'm creating that together with my team, so it will be a couple of people working at the project. And about the project, the Boeing 737 simulator type rating, if it will be successful, it will be about 30 episodes about the normal procedures, systems, and all other stuff that you need to know, plus a couple of non-normals like engine failures and some minor failures as well. Altogether would be about 40 episodes in total. So you might find a lot of tutorials about Boeing 737 on the internet, mostly quick start procedures, cold and dark, quick start, quick setup, etc. etc. In this series I would like to give you intermediate to advanced level knowledge. So basically I would like to give you the knowledge on the proficient first officer level. So I would expect this kind of things to be known by the guy sitting on my right side in the 737. So it might enhance your simulator flying. If you're into 737, see if you want to know more than the others, please be happy to watch this series. On this we'll be using 737-800 from Zibo. That's the freeware add-on on X-Plane 11, but it will work nicely as well for other add-ons as PMDG and PMDG that is coming shortly to the FS 2020. After completing the course, you will be able to fly 800 and all the NG, so new generation series 6, 7, 8, and 900. And at the end we'll do some transition course to classic as well. So I'm flying a Sentry 300 as well as 200, which you might see on some of my channel videos. So as I said, it will be intermediate to advanced knowledge, but if you want to get some more details about the 737 that might not be necessary in the beginning, you can go to the Boeing 737 technical site and the link will be left just below the video. So let's talk about the airplane first. So the episode 1 will be basically introductions and limitations. So you already got introduced to Boeing 737 and the channel. And talking about the airplane, as you know, that's one of the most popular airliners in the world. It's already above 10,000 pieces of this flying. It was produced, at least. I don't know how many are flying at the moment. It was created in late 60s, and the first flight took place on 9th of April 1967. So it was created very quickly. It was quite rushed So it was created out of 727. So Boeing 727 was kind of the father for that. And you might see a lot of remains of 727. If you take a look on the profile even, you will see that all the cross sections, all the fuselage and the cockpit itself is basically a Boeing 727. It was quite controversial when it first came up because it was one of the first airplanes, actually it was first jet airplane, certified to be operated just by two crew. So we had just captain and the first officer, we no longer had the flight engineer, not talking about the radio operator. So in 60s, all the airplanes had at least 3 flight crew members. Some of them had 4 of them, so this one came up with 2, and all the unions went mad about that. So you're gonna follow pilot because we won't need so many of them. But at the end of the day, it came up. It was very efficient airplane, and it was safe to operate it at 2 crew. And now, as we know, most of the airplanes are certified to be operated by 2 crew. And some smaller jets are even certified to be operated as a single crew. But that's along the smaller jets like business jets and the private small planes. Talking about the size, it's kind of medium airliner. Uh, at 800, we'll talk about size of 800 with winglets, which will change a bit of size. It is 39.5 meter long, which is giving you, I have to check it, 129 feet roughly. It is 35.8 meters wide, so it's 36 meters. You can assume that if something is saying max wingspan 36, you can basically fit in there. So 36 meters, 117 feet wide, and it's 12.5 meter high from the tip of the tail to the ground, which is roughly 42 feet. And the maximum takeoff weight of this airplane is depending on the model, but the highest certified of 800, it's around 79 tons, so it's 174,000 pounds. Some airlines will go a bit less for the, of course, money reasons, because they charge on the maximum takeoff weight. But the maximum takeoff weight of 737 is roughly 79 tons. That's about the size of this airplane. Talking about the landing gear, we have 5.7 meter wide on the landing gear, so despite being quite wide, about 36 meters, you can fit on the taxiway that is around 8 meters wide, having some margin on the left and the right, even if the engines will be operated over the grass, and they can be taxied over the grass. So if the main landing gear is on the pavement, the engine doesn't have to. That's one of the reasons they flat on the bottom, because they need some extra terrain clearance. So Boeing decided to make them flat on the bottom. So the nose gear is about 4 meters behind the nose itself, and it's about 2.5 meters behind the pilot's. That will matter during taxi, and I will show you taxiing this airplane later on in the video. And the main span, so from the nose wheel to the main gear, is approximately 16 meters, so it's about 50 feet. You have to keep that in mind when taxiing and vacating the runway. So once you're vacating the runway, you have to keep in mind that if you pass the line yourself, you still have 35 meters behind you. So just quick shutout, and during taxi you cannot just turn on the line because otherwise the main landing gear will go out of the taxiway. So talking about the landing gear, of course, on all the systems we'll be talking in detail in separated episodes. We have main wheel brakes on each wheel. So basically each wheel here has a set of brakes, and those set of brakes are usually, depending on the version, is 6 brake discs. So altogether we have 24 discs slowing this airplane. And of course it's equipped with the anti-skid system, so system preventing locking of the wheels during braking, and the auto brake system, which will be controlled from the flight deck just in here, and it will help us to slow down after landing. Max extension speed of landing gear 270, max retraction 235, which is quite common mistake if you put it out. If you extend the landing gear by mistake, you try to retract that, and this speed is kind of low. And max extended speed is 320 knots. So here, by the way, we have the placard with the speeds. So if you're flying 800 only, you might remember those speeds, but if you're flying different versions, you have, like, cheat sheet in here. So 900 and 700 and 800, they will have different flap limit speeds. The landing gear limit is always the same for 737, but the flap limit will differ from version to version. And that's about the landing gear. So, talking about that, we can start up the engines, and I will tell you a little bit about taxiing this airplane, some more details about the engines. And yeah, let's just play along that one. So we are already prepared for startup. So today not following any checklists, although I will tell you how to do that in later episodes. And two. And one. Oil pressure. 25% minimum or 20% if max motoring. 25%. Let's add some fuel to that. The AGT is rising, as you say. So the maximum speed, maximum temperature of this starting of the startup is depicted by the red line in here, and it's 725 degrees Celsius, but you don't need to remember that one. Technically you have the line in here. Starting it out, engine number 2 is stable, so we'll be starting engine number 1, going to ground into and 1 oil pressure. Approaching 25% and 2. Add some fuel. And TGT is rising. So 725 and red line for takeoff is 950. Max continues 925, and it will basically go red once you hit the maximum temperature. Starting it out will happen at 56%, and that's automatic. If it doesn't happen, you are allowed to move it manually back to off or auto, depending on the version. We'll talk about start switches on the later episodes as well. So once we get to good engines, let's get that on buses. Quick reconfiguration, and we're not going to fly anyway, but just a matter of habit. And we switch off the lower DU by double clicking that one. If we have any malfunction of the engine, the lower DU will pop up automatically. So we don't need to have it open all the time. So actually it's even better to have it closed, because then any malfunction will pop up lower to you, and then you know that something is happening here. Talking about the engines, they are CFM 56-7B. It's a joint venture between SNECMA and GE. So they are created together by these two companies, and they're powering up quite many airplanes right now, including 737s and A320s. The biggest airplane they were fitted to was A340, which had 4 of those. But that was early versions, and the later ones they decided it's a bit too small. So they basically, these ones are rated at 27.3 thousand pounds of thrust. These particular ones are 26, but the maximum is 27.3. You can manually derate them, but we'll talk about the derates on the separate videos. That's quite a long story. So 27.3 is roughly 12 tons of thrust per engine, and it can provide this thrust for 5 minutes or 10 minutes if you have additional certification. Yeah, let's just put those speeds in back. I don't technically need them again. So 737 can take off all many different flap configurations. As you see, we have flaps 5 here. Talking about the remains of 727, if you take a look on 727 flap lever and flap selector, actually all the throttle quadrant here, it's basically 90% the same, and this one was copied out of 727. So Boeing was creating 737. They were really in a hurry to present it, so they basically cut in pieces 737 and created that one. So it's really similar inside. Talking about the flaps, we have many flaps position. 0, which is flaps up, flaps 1, we can use them for takeoff. 2, 5, 10, 15, 25, 30 and 40. So for takeoff we can use flaps 1, 5, 15, 25 in 737-800, and on this airplane we have basically leading edge and trailing edge devices are controlled by a single lever, and we have 4 slots and on each wing, on the leading edge of each wing, and 2 flaps on each wing, and we have trailing edge flaps on each wing as well. So we have 2 parts of flaps, trailing edge flaps. They are 2 slotted flaps. As you see, it's 1 and 2 slots here, and you have 2 flaps. They are fully extended now. And on the leading edge we have 4 of the slots, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we have 2 leading edge flaps just in here. They have positions. The flap is either extended or retracted, and the slots can be either extended or fully extended. They fully extended now. So let's go back to flaps 5, 1, and shortly you will see the flaps, the slots will retract a little as well. So they now fully extended, and they're going to extended position, and if I put flaps up, the slots will go to fully closed position, making that flush with the rest of the wing. And of course that's the normal in-flight position. And there's the flap. The flaps actually have 1 and 2 flaps, and they're going to fully extended position now, straight away. So basically we shouldn't operate flaps on the ground if there is somebody next to the airplane, because you can actually feed your hand or something in there and get crushed. So you know, that's hydraulic system, so it's really powerful one. Talking about the takeoff, we can take off with maximum tailwind of 10 knots or 15 knots if we have the option installed, and most of the 737 have the 15 knot tailwind option, and we can have crosswind of 36 without winglets or 33 with winglets. So this particular one would have crosswind limit of 33. That's actually quite a lot. But you might hit the airport at which you will hit the crosswind limit and you have to divert anyway. And there is no really headwind limit. You don't have really maximum headwind on 737. There is only one limitation saying maximum taxi wind is 65 knots. So we can assume that's the limiting headwind as well, because you cannot even taxi after. Okay, what else before we start actually playing with the tank is it's certified to land in this wind, so 33 crosswind, 15 tailwind, and it is capable of doing the automatic landing. And the automatic landing is maximum 25 knots headwind, 25 crosswind, and 10 tailwind. But the most of the operators will reduce these speeds because it's getting a bit wobbly and unstable at higher crosswinds. So to perform the automatic landing, we'll need a lot of things to be operational, including the front shield wipers. So even if one of those is failed, we are Cat 1 only already. And of course we need 2 autopilots to perform fully automatic landing. We talked about the flaps. The automatic landing will be flaps 30 or 40, but that's gonna be in detail on separate episode. The flight controls, we have of course elevators. As usual in any airplane, the flight controls are hydraulically powered elevator, rudder, and the ailerons. So the ailerons here, and we have some spoilers, which are the primary flight control, and we do have ground spoilers and flight spoilers using for decelerating the airplane in flight underground, and those ones are secondary flight controls. Speed brake we can use in flight only up to 1000 feet when talking about the flight controls, and it's quite efficient, but 737 is quite a sleek airplane, and sometimes you will need a lot of speed brake to slow down. It's basically kind of good glider, so if you will fly a couple of hours in that one, you will notice that it's not like a Cessna or something. It doesn't want to slow down. She wants to fly, so as I said, it's kind of a glider. What else? We talk about the flight controls, we talk about the landing gear, we can talk about the fuel. So as you see, I'm in kilograms. Some 737s are switched on to pounds, but that's depending on the operator, of course. It can be changed by the maintenance. So if you sell the 737 to somebody else, they can choose if they want to have pounds or kilograms. And we have 3 main tanks in the 737. We have 3 tanks, so 2 wing tanks called the main tanks, and the center tank, which is the biggest one. And depending on the version, 800 actually have 3900 in the wing tanks, plus roughly 13 tons in the center tank, which is maximum of 20,800 kilograms of fuel. So that's about 70,000 pounds. No, that's too much. 47,000 pounds. I haven't calculated before. So technically we should use the fuel from the center tank first, and then at the end we're gonna use the wing tank fuel. But again, we'll talk about the fuel in this separate episode. We are certified to use couple of different fuels. The main is Jet A1, And the fuel has, of course, temperature limits, and we do have the temperature indication of the fuel in here, which is taken from the left side, from the left tank. And the minimum temperature is -43, or 3 degrees below the freezing level of the certain fuel. And the freezing level for Jet A1 is -46, so it's -43 anyway. And the maximum temperature is +49 for that. So it rarely happens that we will receive fuel that is so warm, but if you're standing on the ramp for hours in Morocco or any sunny place, it can get up to 40 degrees in here. So talking about the fuel, we have to have, we can have imbalance here. If we produce too much imbalance, it will be depicted in amber, in yellow. And the imbalance limit is 453 kilograms, so 1000 pounds of imbalance. It's in between left wing and right wing. The center tank doesn't count in imbalance, obviously. And we need minimum of 760 kilograms, so roughly 2000 pounds in each tank to operate, because the hydraulic pumps are cooled by the fuel, so we need 760 kilograms in each tank to fly, otherwise they will overheat and you will get this light in here, overheat over the ELEC hydraulic pump. That's it. So all the systems will be brought to detail in separate episodes. And what else we have from limitations? We have speeds. So maximum speed of 737 is 340 knots, which you can set. That's maximum you can set, or 0.82 Mach. That's the VMO. That's the MMO. So Mach maximum operating, at a VMO, V maximum operating speed. And you have to keep in mind, it's quite easy to overshoot that. Those engines are really powerful, so if you forget yourself, for some reason you won't have auto throttle, it's quite easy to overshoot the speed. Maximum altitude for 737 for takeoff landing is 8,400 feet, or 12,000 if we have high altitude option. And if you have this option, you'll have a button high altitude just in here. It's not available in Zibo anyway. Maybe it's in PMDG, but I'm not sure about that one. And the maximum cruising flight level is flight level 410, which is a big change from 737 Classic, which was operated to 370. And you sometimes could get into the weather, and 410 basically will allow you to avoid all the weather except subtropical and tropical regions, when the weather can go up to 450 or something. That's the maximum altitude. So the APU, so auxiliary power unit, is still running, and the one single gauge for that is in here. APU on 737-800 is fully FADEC controlled, so you don't really have any authority above that on that, except switching it on and off and pulling the fire extinguisher lever. It has the separate extinguishing bottle. So APU is used to provide the electrical power, as you can see in here. APU generator of bus, that means that we have APU power available, but it's not used. And APU is used to provide as well the bleed pressure to the system, which is used for pressurizing the airplane, starting the system, and starting the engines, air conditioning. And it can be used for power generation and pressurization up to flight level 100. Then we can use it only for pressurization up to 17,000 feet, and for only power we can use, for only electricity we can use it up to flight level 410. So technically we can just do the full flight using just the APU, not using the generators in here. That's it about the APU. More about that we'll talk on the separate video, of course, engines and APU. And if you need something in really big detail, you have to visit the Boeing 737 technical site. I will give you the knowledge, so that I would expect from the proficient FO, as I said. But if you want to get, you know, PhD on 737, you have to reach a bit further. And of course, I will leave you all the links in the description if you want to get some more information about that one. So that's it from the systems. We talked about all the system, the flight controls, APU, engines, limitations, and yeah, I guess that's it. So we can take the pleasure of taxiing a 737. As we talked before, it's a long airplane, and as you see, we are seated just in front of the line 706. It doesn't really look like we are far away, but you have to remember that you are almost 4 meters above the ground. So, you know, the perspective is different. So let's release the parking brake and start the taxi. So the nose wheel is turning. It's usually turned on the ground by the tiller in here. And this tiller will control the nose wheel up to 78 degrees. So it's almost perpendicular to the airplane, 78 degrees. But during the takeoff run, as you have only one tiller, you don't have tiller on the right side. It was an option, but it was like 6 or 7 737s out of 10,000 of them produced with this tiller on the right side. So if you don't have the tiller on the right side, you will use the rudder pedals, and the rudder pedals control the nose wheel up to 7 degrees, which is enough for takeoff and landing. So you can control the airplane on the runway using only the rudder pedals. Okay, so the minimum turning radius is 20.1 as we talked. And you have to consider that it's still long airplane, so we cannot just start turning here to the right, because otherwise the back would just cut the corner a lot. So if you want to be specific and taxi as you should taxi, you will have to overshoot all the lines, like at least this. It looks like we are almost on the line. But as you can see outside, we haven't even reached the outline here. So the taxiing a 737 will involve a lot of overshooting the lines. Okay. So the taxi speeds are depending on the operator, but they're usually 10 knots on the apron and 30 knots out of the apron, and more on the active runway. If you want to backtrack, you can taxi up to 50 knots. So turning to the left, let's turn to the left here again. We have to let this line go far beyond the airplane, then start turning. Otherwise, if it's narrow taxiway, the back of the airplane or the main landing gear would be quite close to the edge, to the grass, so you have to keep that in mind. We are offline, we don't have any traffic, so we can just line up on the runway, so you will see that again. And I'll show you one more thing about that before we actually get to the runway. If you're taxiing on the airport and you are clear to hold or you are expected to hold before the runway, you should stop before that line, like here. But let's say you want to stop like this because you want to see the line. And now take a look at that. So here it looks like we're quite close to the line. And if you go outside, you still have 15 meters out of the line, plus almost 40 meters in the back. So you have to take that into consideration if you're taxiing in the busy airport and you basically want to go into that line. You don't want to stop like this. You cannot cross the line with your nose, but you have to go really close to the line. So basically, I would feel quite comfy with stopping like this. So I'm still far away from the line, but I'm closer to the line that I was before. So let's take a look how it would look if I actually taxi my nose into the line. Okay, that's about right. So let's stop in here. And you see the line is actually below the airplane. And the airplane itself is still before the line. That's important in the congested airport, so somebody might be able to pass behind you. And actually in Dublin airport there was quite many accidents involving the other airplanes taxiing behind and the other guy was holding far away from the line, and they basically hit the winglet into his tail, so keep that in mind. Okay, lining up. So the lineup is again a tricky one. As you might see on my streams or my videos if you follow the channel, you don't want to follow that line, the yellow line, on lineup. You want to use full runway distance. So you just, if you don't have any obstacles, you just line up straight ahead, and it would look like, okay, I'm in the center, start turning now. But if you started turning now, you will line up in this part of the runway on the left half. So again, the main gears are almost 20 meters behind you, so you have to overshoot it nicely. So it will look like you're going to leave the runway on this side and then you start turning, and you might get a correct lineup. But I believe I didn't overshoot it enough anyway. Yeah, maybe I did. So, kind of about right. So you see that it's actually, you need to go far away and then get the line up. If you follow that line, you would lose about 45 meters of the runway. So you want to go here and turn left, roughly. One last thing I want to demonstrate to you is the turning radius. So this runway is, I think it's 45 meters wide. And let's just stop here for a second. That's Warsaw Shopping. And we can go to Warsaw Shopping and check the airport chart. Not the airport briefing, but the airport chart in here. We are on runway 15 and let's say okay, let's go back. We almost done, guys, so stay tuned for a second. And approach runway 15. And the landing distance available is, yips. Okay, that's not NAVTEC chart, it's the Jepsen chart, so I'm forgetting that one. But what we can say is we can check all these stripes. We have 6 pairs of stripes, which means the runway is 45 meters. I forgot about that one. So we'll taxi to the side of the runway and start turning from the side. So if the runway is 45 meters and turning radius, the minimum turning radius is 24, we should basically almost fit on the side of the runway. So let's say the left main gear is just on the line here. So I will turn the wheel first, which I shouldn't do. I should gain like 1 or 2 knots. I start rolling forward and then turn. So we can do that and start rolling. We turn the wheel fully and we'll see how much it will take to turn that 737 around. Keep in mind that Boeing is not actually recommending using differential thrust for taxiing and turning. So the logic would be to put it like this, but technically Boeing saying it's not. So it might just overstress the nose gear if you use the differential thrust or differential braking. So yeah, we're just fitting nicely on one side of the runway. So see, actually we are managed to fit within half of that, which is quite tight turn. Of course, if you take a 900 or 700 or 600, which is even shorter, the radiuses will be different in these cases. Okay guys, thank you very much for your attention, and if you like the channel, if you like the idea, give me a feedback. If you need to, if you think I should change something, leave me a comment as well, please. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching and stay tuned, fly safe, thanks. So just a short appendix before we leave. Basically, the runway is 60 meters in Warsaw, the runway 15. It's 60 meters wide, not 45, so sorry for my mistake. So 60 meters is counted from the line to line, so it's 30 meters to the center line. And as you saw, we were able to turn within these 30 meters. So that was that. Thanks for watching once again. See you guys.